Hey guys, thank you for tuning in to another episode of InRange. We are doing a little special episode from SHOT Show 2017 in which we've been able to get kind of exclusive access to the progenitors of the new all the hype about Hudson 9 pistol, which we went to see at the media day to shoot it a little bit, and the hype seems to be some reality to it. When you hear
a pretty cool gun.
When you hear about this stuff at SHOT Show, you're like, oh, this is the gun to see, this is the gun to see, and 9 times out of 10 you go look at it and you're like, why? So we went to their booth the other day and we got to fire and we're like, oh, we kind of get that, and then we went and talked to them a little more and find out there's actually a more interesting and compelling story about not just the pistol, but the origins of it. And we have an entrepreneurial couple here. We have Cy and Lauren, who are the owners of Hudson 9, or the Hudson Company, right?
Hudson Manufacturing is the name of the company.
Hudson Manufacturing, let me get that right. And so I bumped into a friend of mine walking down a hallway. She's a competitive shooter, and she started giving us the story about how this came about, Barb. And I'm like, whoa, stop.
Nice.
This is fascinating, and no one's talking about this, because the engineers and the people that make a gun sometimes put a lot of what they are about into the pistol or whatever they're designing, and we wanted to talk to you about that today.
Yeah, you usually don't hear that.
Yeah. As well as you hire people from the industry and shooters, which is also an interesting side note, but that's another topic.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that progenitors is the word of the day as far as...
Okay, fair enough.
Lauren and I started working on this around 3.5 years ago. I was in Fort Wainwright in the military up there. We had both deployed, Lauren as a contractor and me active duty.
That's the middle of nowhere in Alaska, by the way.
Oh yeah, Fairbanks. It's, well, actually, we were in North Pole, Alaska was the name. We were right next to Santa's house. Yeah, Santa's house. There's a Santa's house right in North Pole.
He was your neighbor?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
That's what it's called.
Awesome.
And so we knew I was getting out, and we wanted to do something where we had more time together, because a deployment after a whole year, we were both in RC South in Kandahar, and we saw each other a couple times, but we realized that really isn't what we wanted to do years apart or
Sure.
months apart. And so the first thing we did was we're like, let's do something together and at least give it a test before we get out of the Army. We actually started firearm retail, but really small time, out of our garage, just to learn the ins and outs of the ATF.
And to make sure we could handle working together without killing each other.
That's a good plan.
That's true. You know, being a couple or being married or whatever is one thing. Working together all the time is a whole nother level.
Absolutely.
Right? It's absolutely true.
You know what? Liking guns is one thing, and working in the firearms industry is a whole other
Is another.
thing.
So you were one of these garage FFLs for a while.
Yeah.
We were
Okay.
garage FFL, and we both like guns. We started talking and dating because on one phone call, I was like, hey, how are you doing? She goes, hey, I gotta go. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, well, I've got to go train with my SWAT instructor. And I'm like, you're in SWAT? She goes, no, I have a SWAT instructor who's training me to shoot. I was like, oh, that's cool.
That's what brought you two together, really? It was firearms was the mutual. That's fancy. That's unusual and also fascinating.
He
Quite
was on
honestly.
West Point's pistol team, and I hadn't known
Nice.
that when we first started talking either. So.
Oh, you were a bullseye shooter?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah,
Did you shoot a Perry at all?
I'm actually an All-American. We won nationals in
Fantastic.
2009. So
Nice.
shooting little BBs out of a pellet.
This is where I get to be proud and embarrassed all at once, because I shot Perry and I shot NRI high-power rifle for a long time.
Oh, awesome.
And I got 28 of the legs to be distinguished, or points. I'm missing 2. I need 30. I've got my hard leg. I've shot all that. I need 2 points left, and I have my DR badge. And I went, I'm going to go shoot 2 gun. Kind of funny, so yeah.
I went to Camp Perry, shot for the President's 100, and I got schooled.
That is that is a very difficult match.
My background in shooting is actually collegiate bullseye pistol.
Yeah.
On about the worst team in the country at the time.
But anyway, this is actually very interesting, because to me, that I went from shooting, which is a very disciplinary high power, and by the way, they're all disciplines, you know that, any of these matches or environments are, but now I'm kind of a run and gun, shooting on the move kind of guy, which is more exciting.
and fun.
It's more exciting, it's also more, practical is not the word, but it's more modern in terms of its application to the real world. And so you have this bullseye NRA pistol, President's 100, that must form into some of your design methods.
You know, I can see elements of bullseye in these
I
guys.
do.
We're getting
Now
a little
that
bit
you
ahead
say
of
it.
ourselves here, but
No, sorry.
No, that's a good thing, guys. That's a good
Yeah.
thing, because people that need to shoot at those little teeny targets far away learn to become true marksmen,
Yeah.
and that goes into what your pistol should be.
It's the only time I ever learned any discipline in my life. Having to do an hour and 45 minutes, 60 shots, same exact shot process. It was terrible.
killer.
Laying on the firing line at Camp Perry in the swamp for an hour when there's a ceasefire, waiting for the next opportunity to shoot. When you're sitting there, at the 600-yard line, loading, single loading, that's in a bondage suit with your arm strapped up and your arm asleep, like this, going, can I go now? Can I go now? You're right, it is a discipline in its own right. I know pistol and rifle are different, but it takes extreme amounts of mental focus to be able to do well at any of those matches.
rifle's always considered more elite. You always.
I disagree. I think the pistol's harder.
You always get more funding. Come on.
That's true.
Yeah, they
That
do.
is true. That is true, but I think the pistol is actually the more difficult of the two.
Oh, I appreciate. I appreciate your opinion.
I think it's true. Yeah. So are you a competitive shooter too?
I'm not, so
Okay.
I have not competed yet.
That's
I've
fine.
been training. Our director of training is getting me into shape, and I'm going to be out there.
Awesome. Someday maybe you'll visit Arizona and shoot our 2-gun match.
We'd love that.
Boy, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, so we left off your making sure that you're willing to tolerate each other with
Oh, yes,
a garage
absolutely.
FFL, and what happened from there?
We have a super complementary skill set. He's an extremely creative type. I'm a organized, process-oriented, and I have a math and physics background, so I was trying to bring that into what he's conceiving on paper, and he's dissected just about everything that we could get our hands on in our garage FFL. It gave us a huge kind of library to work from, and
Nice.
seeing kind of what the common things are coming in. We're also huge readers of the blogs, listening to what everybody's talking about, and we started coming to SHOT Show about, this is our 4th year at SHOT Show.
Take a shot.
Okay.
Came here, we're looking around, taking notes on what are people doing right, what's changing, what innovations out there, how people are running their booths, all that kind of stuff, and started thinking about, okay, if we wanted to do a company, how would we do it? One of the things that we really, really like is that kind of education-based thing. I love it when people are teaching me about the design. We wanted all of our design choices to be extremely deliberate. So, but before we were even out there doing our own thing, he's sketching in notebooks, and he's got his green book original sketch.
Got my Army Green book, and we were we were messing around with guns, and that was when we were really learning. We had friends who were doing FFLs. We opened our FFL, and
Loose springs in our living room because things go flying across the floor. Like, I'm sure that goes somewhere.
Ziploc bags are your savior for that stuff.
I hate my garage. I mean, like, there's nooks and crannies and all this stuff all the time. But really, it's we were very ignorant when we first were doing our FFL, and we were trying to learn as much as we could. I mean, even the forums, we weren't posting it, we were just reading. We started, getting obsessive about it, and we were sitting there, and we kept on carrying our striker guns, and we know that's part of our marketing campaign that we did, but we were carrying our striker guns, but we love shooting our 1911s better, and that was our bedside gun, and it was always, and I've gone through the iteration. I still have my Wilson Combat, but I have AAA grade wood grips on it. It looks really nice. And Lauren actually, her wedding gift?
Our wedding present, yeah.
That was a Wilson Combat Spec Ops 9.
Loved them.
So
Awesome.
So actually, if you go and look at the aesthetics, upper serrations and a bunch of things, you'll actually see a lot of similarities to that pistol. And if you actually look at the mag well of this pistol, that was the mag it originally took.
Okay.
And we can go over that in a second about why we did not stick with that particular magazine. It was mostly to get our grip more compact and svelte. Sorry, I'm trying for my own word of the day. Svelte.
No, that's great. In fact, it's a word I used to describe it earlier today, without you being here. So
Well, thank you. That's a huge compliment.
So, Fairbanks, -60 in the winter, pitch black outside.
-60
-60.
Fahrenheit.
I'm not kidding. We hit -60 one day that we were out there.
That's freaking insane.
Saw it on my iPhone. It's not normally that cold, but I mean, once you get below -20, cold is cold.
I've been in that once or twice, even though I'm from Arizona, out in Colorado, and when you walk out into that, it burns your lungs. It just immediately hurts. It's worse than 120. It's actually awful. Yeah.
Well, we had to run outside until it got below -25. I hated being. Well, no, I love being an Arctic warrior.
So at any rate, this turned into, well, we're not leaving the house for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's wine, there's Netflix, there's a bunch of guns around the house, and we have things dissected on the table and
That
having
sounds
those.
awesome.
So you started having conversations about, well, I carry this, I shoot that, I like this so much better, why?
I don't remember what happened last night, but somehow the 1911 has a Glock slide on it.
Right, so we're sitting there, we're thinking about it, and have computers out in front of us. We don't know how to run CAD. Neither one of us are CAD people.
Sure.
Okay.
But we do know how to take screenshots of things and use that little erase function in PowerPoint.
Yeah.
And start blowing through certain geometries on the slide and saying, all right, well, if I take away this much of the frame, I now have no room for my barrel. Where am I going to put things? And what that actually enabled us to do is really reimagine. We're trying to not go into it with any assumptions that you have to put things in certain places.
You engineered the gun with MS Paint. That's what you're saying.
Well, what's interesting, what I'm hearing though is that you came into this from the perspective of what you functionally wanted,
Yeah.
but not necessarily a specific engineering background in how to get there.
Correct.
Which allows you actually to not be stuck in a dogmatic thinking fashion. If you're an engineer and you're like, we always do this, we always make this polymer, we add a striker, we put a serration here, and now it's a new gun, and you do that 5 years in a row, it's not a new gun, it's just an iteration of the same thing.
Absolutely.
You're coming at this from a different angle.
I will only say positive things about other guns.
I'm not saying
I've made the
negative
rule
things.
at this show.
But I'm not saying negative things, what I'm saying is you're coming at this from a different angle, which allows you to not be bound by dogma.
You know, it's
Right?
interesting.
Yeah.
Gaston Glock.
Oh,
You ever designed a gun and went, what do I want it to do? I want it to do this, and came up with a phenomenally successful design.
Right, so it's easy, I'm sorry, but it's easy to get caught in these cycles of thought.
Right.
Yep.
Any industry, computers, anything. And it's sometimes a fresh perspective allows a fresh idea.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay.
We also take that as a compliment.
Sure.
we kind of started with a wish list of obviously 1911 straight pull trigger. That's what we wanted. We didn't want to introduce any rotation to our shot
Okay.
process.
Well, collegiate
There's
shooting.
your bullseye.
Yeah, how's your shot process as consistent as possible? And that is what everyone loves. And I'm going to call it, actually Larry Vickers, I think he had a video with Ken Hackthorne. He was talking about, he's like, well, that 1911 trigger is a crutch. You don't want to get too dependent on that. I got so excited whenever I saw that video. I was like, yes, but it's an option again.
And this goes back and harkens back to your competitive shooting as well as your practical experience.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Totally. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So this came from somewhere.
The brick.
The brick.
The brick. This is the brick.
Yeah, so once we decided, okay, we're going to get out of the military, one thing we could stay passionate about the entire time we believe was firearms. And we decided to put our deployment money, everything we had saved from both being deployed, to good use. We got on, Beretta was advertising for a firearm design engineer. We copied and pasted their post, edited out their name, put it on guru.com, and hired an engineer.
We wanted their job posting language because I'm like, exactly what qualifications do we need for an engineer to get this thing in CAD and understand what forces we're going to be playing with, what material tolerances. Like, that sounds good.
They knew what these guys probably know.
No, I mean, no, it's very unusual. I don't know what could come in the future that would be something truly different that we've never seen before. So the thing here is, for example, I think it was Steve Jobs along the quote of, they're good art, or artists steal, great art, or no, good artists copy, great artists steal, right? No, and that's fine, I'm like paraphrasing, but there's truth, because in a world where people have done everything at least once, you can take from that and take what's right and discard what's wrong and try to capitalize on it. Trying to reinvent the wheel is not always the best way. Look at the right decisions and then work with them.
Well, it sounds like you did a lot of that by building up basically a firearms reference library and taking stuff apart. Well, how did these guys address this problem? How did these people do it? That one sucks, that one sucks, that one sucks. This one looks like we can apply it to our design.
Your videos were helpful.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I was thinking, who else has that? Interesting, okay. Okay, so tell us more about the brick then.
So the brick with the engineer, we said we wanted a 1911 style trigger, but we wanted it to be striker fired. We realized that we wanted the slide to be right on top of the frame, and we knew that would necessitate moving our recoil spring down, and it was a year back and forth with us using PowerPoint and or Paint and insetting CAD files, and just learning a lot about the limitations, what we could do, what we couldn't do.
Kind of the idea with dropping that slide right on top of the trigger guard area, you start bore axis. Lowering bore axis is a really huge thing. You're hearing it in blogs. You like it. You want to have that hand by the barrel. But we see a lot of designs actually creeping up the hand to the barrel, and just playing with designs, I see that starts to tip my trigger finger down.
Okay.
For us, having that straight pull process, or that straight pull, that everything acting in a front to back motion.
A trigger that's not pivoting on an axis.
Exactly.
Yep.
So
You see that geometry in small bore pistols too. Free pistols have your hand way up into the barrel.
I hate shooting free.
Yeah, you totally suck. You know what sucks worse than shooting free pistol? Shooting free pistol when your team has no budget and your free pistol's the same as your rapid fire pistol.
Which, you know, what's
That's
interesting,
impossible.
you know what's interesting about that? If you want to take that further back, if you look at Spanish rapiers, that grip angle is frequently very similar.
Yeah.
And there's reasons that geometrically apply to this in all forms of combatives.
So I did 2 years of fencing before, before I did 2 years of pistol at West Point.
I didn't know that. Okay.
So that,
But here it is, coming
yeah.
back. These things are full circle.
oh,
Yeah.
and we love it. I mean, we really enjoyed the process.
Your foil?
No, saber.
Oh, saber. Okay, all right. Saber's the fast and furious one. For sure. All right.
And no, foil is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Whenever
Well,
you
actually,
try-
rapier more than anything, or the épée.
Epic,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And you're getting into, you know, the traditional, you know, has that straight hold and you're actually extending like this, but the modern ones, you're using pistol grip.
You are.
You are, and
You
you're
are.
sitting there doing like this, you know,
Uh-huh.
it's
I did a couple years of épée. So.
oh, okay, well,
Yeah, fair
respect,
enough.
that's a lot more patience as well.
And painful, actually. But anyway, so yes. So let me ask, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, I do have a question on the gun. So why, I understand, but let's do this for the audience, why striker? Why this emphasis on a striker versus a hammer?
Oh, I'm gonna tick some John Moses Browning fans off right here.
It's okay.
And if you wanna answer.
There's no
I
sacred
wish you
cows.
would- They can't be as angry as
You know,
would be me.
before John Browning did the 1911, he designed a couple of striker fire guns.
Oh, yeah.
Browning 1900's a striker.
And remember the POA Luger striker fire too.
Well-
So these are not new either.
No, the four original patents, one of them was like a rotating barrel, one was, you know, a striker fired, and, you know, it was there already.
And yet you chose not to copy the gas trap one.
So at any rate, what is the functional reason for that? Let's go to the audience with what your rationale is to that.
Part of it was actually taking a look at why we weren't carrying our hammers back. You know, my original trainer, with the SWAT instructor, was talking about the perception. He was California SWAT instructor, was talking about people don't like visibly seeing that hammer back.
That's true.
It does create some discomfort for general population around there. We were trying to think on a business standpoint where the market's actually moving, trying to incorporate that as well. And from having a reliable design, having a repeatable design, we were taking a look at those wear surfaces in a 1911. We didn't want to have negative sear engagement. We wanted to have something extremely robust, something repeatable. We wanted to design it to do that.
I mean, where we started with is very rough, but we knew that you see all the guys who are saying, I never carried a 1911, it's not really reliable. Well, anytime you're introducing underhood cams that would be precisely cut or circular cut, your machining is more difficult, your fit needs to be better, and anytime you're using pins to put in a sear that has to exactly line up in order to get a correct sear engagement, you're overcoming that surface, you're introducing wear to the surfaces. It has nothing to, you know, yes, we knew that everyone was moving, and law enforcement can say whatever they want, but one of the reasons they don't carry that hammer locked and cocked is public perception. They're public servants. That's what they care about. So the striker allows that to be much more comfortable in the eyes of an administrator or anything like that. But the wear surfaces themselves were really what we wanted to get at. You can see pins in this pistol, and that's one of the reasons we didn't stick with this design, is we wanted it to be a repeatable surface that had a positive sear engagement that still dropped free without inherent wear in the design.
Now that you mention it, it's interesting that it's fairly common to, when you're reading up on 1911 forums, people do trigger jobs, and they do them badly, and the pistols double.
Yes.
But you don't ever hear about that.
Or they have hammer follow and it doesn't fire, or whatever.
Right.
Was there any thought in that regards to the reduction of mass moving during the firing cycle or lock time?
So it was more about actually making a very svelte, again, grip. If
the
you
right
have,
word.
if you have that mainspring housing in there, it's going to be a bigger grip. And we wanted to go double stack 9mm.
Okay.
We knew that. So
Okay, and that applies in many ways. It applies into the comfort of holding the gun, which I can speak for this. It feels very good in the hand.
It really does.
It's also thin, which if you were to conceal carry it, an appendix, which is all the rage in the modern era, which is my preferred, thinner is more important than overall size. The thinness makes a big difference, and this applies.
It's interesting, it's a double stack pistol, but the grip width is really kind of an intermediate thing between a single stack, like a 1911, and something like an HK or a
I would say it feels, I mean, I don't know the dimensions looking at this. It feels very much like a single stack 1911 in terms of its overall width when you have it in your hand.
1.24 inches. My single stack 1911s come in at 1.3.
Wow.
And a Glock 19 is at 1.18, so only 0.06 inches wider in the grip.
That
Okay.
was fast, man.
Oh, thanks.
And this is why it feels like a 1911 in the hand in terms of the grip width.
And you've got really thin grip panels on there too,
They do.
that help.
And shout out to VZ for making those for us. So
Absolutely.
they're
Cool.
they're not 1911, but yeah, we've made it very, very thin.
Fought
gun's
years
cool.
you can always grow.
The gun's cool, we're getting ahead of ourselves, so the brick
Yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah.
So this is an amalgamation of stuff, kind of.
Yes.
Yes, and it is DMLS, direct metal laser sintering. That is 3D printed metal.
Oh, sweet.
Oh yeah.
You don't realize you're now touching on the hacker community element that watches InRangeTV, because we've been talking about that, and we talk about sinter metal printing and the future of gun development. Actually, we did a talk at DEF CON last year about that very thing.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't
here it is
recommend
in
it for your
prototyping.
first prototype.
No.
The cost and the time go down, but your tolerancing and as you're trying to figure out the engineering behind it, you run into problems. So we wouldn't recommend that for your first, but some of the parts.
You're trying to prove your own design at that point, and it was a brand new.
So prototype on a cheap polymer 3D printer type system and then go to sinter metal, is that what your thought is?
Okay, so I'll say don't make the whole gun.
Don't make everything all at once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
But we actually have some, as a pre-production model, this actually has a few DMLS that won't be that, it'll be steel. But, someone pulled up and was like, ha, your right side slide release does not engage. I was like, I went, pop, and I went, I got that burr off from DMLS. I mean, what are you going to,
Yeah.
the tolerances-
It's still pixelated even in the HD. So
Okay.
I used to help a little bit with some of the Cav Arms lowers, their polymer lowers for F-15s, and the same thing, now that's just a polymer. But they would take two halves and then fuse it together, and there's all sorts of flash, and you have to sit there with a hand file and just get that out of there, otherwise the gun wouldn't run right. Same stuff, same logic.
That used to be the only way to make a real lightweight AR
Yep,
was
yep,
cat
yep.
arms.
Sure is, yeah, totally. So this is a fireable gun, yes or no?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
not well, but it does shoot.
We've seen historical guns that probably do worse, quite honestly. Yeah.
The original patents was, it was a full ambidextrous offset magazine release. I mean, I don't know if anyone can see that, but and the reason we did that was try to use an existing magazine.
Oh.
But in order, because we dropped that slide so low, we couldn't engage the cut. So on the inside, it
Okay.
is some really funny stuff on a lot of it, is how I'll say it.
You can say whatever you want.
It's humorous.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you can see the DNA.
Yes.
We love the original engineer. I remember it was some funny conversations. A howitzer of a barrel, and I believe he kept a 45.
Overall?
We could have chambered it in 45. It was such a big barrel, but it was okay. We were trying to figure out a proof of concept and a really start to where we were going, and you can see we weren't ready to go to market, but you can see the DNA and how we wanted to get there.
So how long ago was that?
3.5 years ago.
August of 2014 were first shots fired on that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Must have been exciting, actually.
It was
We-
terrifying.
Was it? Was it this?
We weren't the first ones to shoot it. We actually let the engineer shoot it the first
Oh,
time.
really?
And,
Okay.
and he went. Well,
You get to do this. Yeah.
he went to his local range to shoot it, and we were out of the country.
Oh.
And we were supposed to hear from him around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Come 7 o'clock in the afternoon, we're still sitting in the bar, waiting to hear from him. Then the phone rang, and he goes, "I've got some video I'm trying to upload to you guys." It went fine. So
Couldn't
But
you
I
have
have
called
no
sooner?
fingers left, so
I wanted
it's
to make
fine.
sure you still had a hand.
having a heart attack. So.
Yeah.
Well, some guys have actually found the original patent for this, and it is Eugene Kane. If you watch this, thank you so much. We hope to get in touch with you soon. But his name was on the original patent. After that, for our Gen 2, which we didn't bring up here, but we do have it here at SHOT Show. There's some video out there. We did move to a team of engineers after we got funding to move forward. But yeah, Gene, we're gonna hit you up. Don't you worry. But yeah, so we moved from this and we took it. We went with a lot of lessons learned. We went with a lot of things that we knew we needed to do better, and we went and got investment.
Nice.
And that was a fun sell, but it wasn't just bringing the pistol. We'd have just bought the pistol and be like, "There's the future right there." No one would have believed that. It was
Explaining the concept, really talking about why this profile, because it's spacey looking initially, especially on this guy.
Sure.
Here, why that profile, and really understanding that we think that placement of that recoil spring is going to lower where you're getting that recoil impulse. You're going to reduce torque on your wrist. We thought that okay, by having a straight pull trigger, by lowering the bore axis, by changing where that recoil placement is, you're going to have a flat shooting gun. Now, I think this one, just with the mass, would have probably stayed pretty flat anyway. It is a brick.
Yeah, right.
But
So for people who haven't seen the inside of these at all, where is the recoil spring in here?
it lines up straight down the center of the trigger guard.
Okay, so right there.
Absolutely.
So substantially lower than pretty much anything
It
else.
sounds like a physics and math kind of problem.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right, fair enough.
Okay.
But getting the investment, it was a lot more about it. To the audience, we didn't just go into this as, hey, we want to build a gun. We were part of the NSSF. We are NRA lifetime members. We understand that stuff matters, but it also gave us access to the literature. For anyone else who's going to go do this, the literature gives you the numbers, and the literature gives you the
What's selling?
the
Where is it
margins,
selling?
and it lets you get in here to SHOT Show to meet all the great people, and that mattered to us. So we presented a business plan.
We had a little cut there, a door opened up, not a big deal, but you were getting to, this is the part where you need to find investment to
Totally.
make this organization a real thing.
Now that we've invented a gun, we have to invent a business plan to go with
We've
it.
made a gun, how do we make this happen, right?
We went through all our deployment savings. We had gone through it, and it wasn't an easy process. We had hit a lot of walls, and we only had what we knew from the guns that were in our hands, and
The first question was, is it going to sell? And we had to go through, we worked on the numbers. We started taking all the NSSF data that they have out there. There's a huge wealth of information on trends, buying patterns, all of that kind of stuff. And really trying to demonstrate what features we had in it, what we planned to put in it, price points that we wanted to hit.
That's important.
Absolutely. A lot of new entries are always polymer guns. Well, that was the first decision that we made is, okay, well, if we come out with a polymer gun that's our economy line, could we ever justify having a premium afterwards? And as a new company, as an unknown, having a Me Too plastic gun was not what was being talked about in the blogs.
no.
You said two things that struck me as interesting. One, you just said you went through almost all of your savings.
Yes.
Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
That's kind of what you have to do to be an entrepreneur like you're trying to be. I think it really is an all-in,
Absolutely.
oh my gosh effort, right?
We moved to Texas. Her family's down there, and I actually love my in-laws, so I'm really blessed that way.
Nice.
But we
If you end up homeless, Texas is a lot better than Alaska.
That's true. Yeah,
That is
absolutely
true.
true. Yeah.
We blew through all of our savings, but it was all in R&D. We watched a lot of Netflix, drank a lot of coffee, and saved and paid
Stayed in,
savings.
did not go out at all.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to maybe taking a vacation sometime soon. But we haven't ever since we started this. It's really been all those,
All in.
anyone
Takes
who
that
really
discipline.
cares about reading entrepreneur.com or Inc.com. I mean, anybody who really cares, those are the stories, and that is what we found to be true.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That really is the American dream reality.
Yes.
It's all or nothing to get there, right?
Yeah.
Then the other thing I heard, which struck me as interesting, was you looked at all of this buying data and research, and then did not listen to it directly. And so, no, I think that's a good thing, because if you were listening to that directly, you would have made a pistol grip pump AR thing, right? I mean, something that makes some polymer. The buying habits aren't necessarily the gun that the industry needs.
Henry Ford. If I listened to my customers, they'd have told me to build a faster horse.
Right, that was it. Thank you for the quote. But
That's
that
it.
was my point, and that's where the data could have led you, but it didn't happen exactly.
Actually, coming up with the name for the company, that was one of the initial research things that we had done. We knew we were doing pistol, and we were kind of thinking, are we going to do something high speed? Are we going to do something very tactical sounding? And the initial data points that we had, what are the legacy brands that stay around in the pistol market? They're all last names.
Interesting. I would have
So-
never really
I did
thought
not-
about that
It's-
aspect of it.
That's interesting.
That was one of the data points that we had there, and we were kind of looking for a coverage gap. Where can we introduce innovation? There's heritage companies out there that people are going to continue buying every single year. They're phenomenal guns. They work. They're reliable.
Colt, Walther. Yeah, I guess there is some naming kind of.
Yeah, until Colt goes out of business.
Well,
Good.
yeah. It's interesting, but there are patterns in human behavior like that
Yeah,
that extend besides guns. I mean, little off topic,
Yeah.
but like one of the out of the top 10, when every time someone hacks a whole group of passwords, monkey. Monkey's usually 1 or 2 or 3 in the top used passwords.
I did not know that.
Why? Who knows? But it's a weird pattern, and there
Yeah.
are patterns like that. So that's interesting research, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, her background, she's saying math and physics. She's also a data analyst, so that's been
Nice.
helpful.
Well, right.
I like
Awesome.
numbers. I'm really bad at arithmetic though, but I can analyze large numbers.
We have calculators for that.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's true.
It's still
At,
normal stuff.
Speaking of monkeys.
at some point, you rely on the technology, and if you learn the concepts, you don't necessarily need to do the exact principles if you know how to use the tools.
Yep.
Right? No, it's true.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So at any rate, so you were looking for investors.
You broke your own rule. You used the word innovation.
Oh yeah. So yeah. No, we don't use innovation. We try not to use it.
Replace it with elegant.
We couldn't use modular either because then everybody thought
The MHS bit was out
bit,
there, so we weren't trying to use
Oh.
modular, even though one of the things that we really wanted to try and do as the design evolved was make it as end-user configurable as possible. We
Sure.
were looking at what the rifle market was doing. There are so much things that people can do to make it their own, and
So much things.
so
Scalable and
math, not English.
scalable and personalizable. I don't know. Pick up some new words.
So
yeah.
let's touch on that. One of the things that really struck me when we were looking at this was you kept pointing out things where you're like, when we do this, we've already built in the foundation for it here. I mean, the simplest of those is the manual safety, which is left-handed, right-handed, both, or neither. Just whichever you want. There's a little plate on each side, and you have a plate or a safety.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Ian, we left behind the investors. Where'd you get your money?
Oh, sorry.
Just trying to finish the creation story,
Okay,
and then
yeah.
we'll do the mechanical.
No,
Sure,
it
yeah.
is. It's private investment is who we went through. So we
You sold your story.
sold our story, we sold the numbers, and we moved forward. And we did not arrive at this right away. There's a Gen 2, and you can go and see some of the videos. People have covered it, but after we did Gen 2 and we had more 1911 style safeties, our bore axis wasn't where it needed to be. It was a frame. It was not a chassis system yet. We had a completely different sear design still, and that was a lot of real estate was forced by. We said we wanted the 1911 style safeties, and so it was a different sear design that incorporated those into it, and.
Actually, when we moved to Gen 2 right after the brick, and we had the funding, we brought on a team of engineers. We intentionally chose non-firearms engineers. We chose
Okay.
mechanical engineers.
I'm
to-
liking this more and more. I really am.
to take a look at it from a completely blank canvas. So
What I was saying earlier, not stuck in dogma.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
So they were the first ones to have a look at it. We were bringing some of our knowledge base. We were trying to understand more about manufacturability. There's no way we could possibly introduce something that cost nearly as much as what this sucker cost to
Oh
build
no.
them.
Sure.
And tolerancing and just general mechanical principles. Abandon the fact that you need to use a torsion spring. Possibly, can you do something else? So that's what we pursued there, and we polished everything enough that when we came to SHOT Show another year later, we were able to start talking to some firearms engineers as well.
Now we're serious.
Now we're
Right.
serious.
Yeah.
And we were actually pressured by our investors, and I'm not going to say pressured in a negative way, especially if they would watch this, but in the, hey guys, we put a lot of money and time
No,
into
that's
this.
legitimate.
How about let's show some photos, let's get some marketing out there, and see if there is the interest that you are saying is there.
Okay.
And we fought and we said, we're not ready. And I don't think, we called the boat anchor now, and our engineering team that worked on it kind of like, really, the boat anchor, like, it's heavy, it's really heavy, and that's why we named it that. But the design changed so drastically. This design and this sear design is much more similar to the Alchemy Arm Spectre that I mentioned. It has a lever arm that deactivates the drop safety in this, but it's a ramp style system. The Alchemy Arms was definitely a marriage of the Glock and a 1911 system. This is not. It is the spring that is resting on the trigger is a leaf spring down the rear, but down here it's actually just a ramp, and it's very, very interesting the way it happened. But we knew that was not, the trigger's nowhere near where it needs to be, and I can't actually show you the trigger on this one because I took out the striker, so it could be a show gun.
Right.
Requirement of SHOT Shows, you have to disable some of these firearms.
That's what the tags mean. Sorry guys, would love to do that for you and show you how long that trigger pull is.
Oh,
We'll
we
do
always tell
that
people,
another time.
keep
Yeah.
going,
Oh, yeah, definitely.
keep going.
Yeah.
But the Gen 2 it's completely different sear design as well, but we got away from that, and I still have the CAD drawing that was sent and the PowerPoint that we sent back showing, hey, add an arm and have that interact with the trigger.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, that's how it was, and they were like, oh, yeah. And it was pretty exciting when they did that.
Well, I think the decision to resist that and not keep it secret, but not start publicizing it too early was a wise one.
Absolutely.
Nothing kills projects in the gun industry faster than being labeled vapor.
I have to admit, it seemed like it was, for me at least, just, it wasn't a little bit before the SHOT Show this year that the hype built. Like, quickly, like immediately. Like, kind of was a blip out there, and then it was a giant battleship on the radar
Lots
real quick.
of NDAs to stay under the radar.
So, for everyone who wants to know, in this industry, if you want to keep something secret, an NDA only goes so far, because everybody calls a buddy and says, I got something I want to let you know about.
No pictures. We didn't have it out there for anybody. We had a few. And drawings that we sent out, people that we were working with. Never full drawings. We didn't want the profile visible. We didn't want the questions.
Smart again.
Wow.
It was goofy because we offended some of our friends. Like, what, do you think we're going to leak it? And we would just say, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
We know you bastards.
When the question is my data safe, the answer is always no.
No.
It is always,
Right?
no.
So, yeah, fair enough.
Mhm.
So then you got to the point of having this investment, and now you are at this essentially production or close to production model.
We did bring on firearm engineers after that.
Okay.
And we said, let's do it one more time.
This makes sense, justify our math, right?
Yeah.
And at that point, having people who aren't a blank slate, who know, oh, you're doing a firing pin, we know from making 1,000 different firing pin models, you need this, and this.
You need that tolerance. You need that
Right.
return. You need the hole to not allow that so there's no primer strikes.
How do your
Absolutely.
serrations need to be so that you don't have any kind of slide crack on your rails if you have
Yeah.
issues? So it's
All those little gotchas that you wouldn't think
Yep.
about. So you test fire something.
Oh yeah, well even the retention spring for the takedown pin, you know those really goofy looking springs that you find in the SIG and you find in the chassis systems and stuff they have. One of our engineers goes, "That's a made up spring," and the next group of engineers who are firearms engineers are like, "Well, yeah, that's what everybody's been doing for this many years. Right? You
Right.
wrap it right here, you do this," and we're like, "Yep, okay."
and that's why.
Yeah.
But it was a good progression for us to be able to get the geometries kind of where they needed to be, and then finesse the tolerancing. And at that point, we really had to consider making it manufacturable.
Right?
So,
Yeah.
cutter paths. Guys that make slides, how are they going to start it? What kind of ops are they going to run?
That is something that so many people have absolutely no comprehension of.
So we now have this thing that works, and if we make it, it's $14,000 a unit or
Right.
whatever,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like, why don't people make reproduction Lugers today?
Oh.
Guess what? A CNC is not a magic press the button duplicator.
And you also don't have an army of men sitting there literally hand filing a piece to fit like a Luger actually requires to work. You're trying to make these in maybe not mass terms, but in production numbers.
Right.
Yeah.
We are trying to bring it to production numbers relatively fast, and for our engineers, I'll say extremely fast. Engineers are by nature cautious, and they should be.
Right.
Absolutely.
You know, with an engineer, no matter what the date you set, they'll say it's too quick.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's just the nature of
That's
engineers in general.
You mentioned Steve Jobs earlier, and I'm pretty sure his lesson was always give them an impossible timeline. You might make it in a reasonable one. And that is not saying anything negative about you guys. Go watch this.
Another side story, but there's one. I know, but these are interesting, similar categories. There was when Apple was moving from the Apple II to the Macintosh environment. There were guys in the engineering firm that wouldn't give up their Apple IIs. And there's a story of Steve Jobs walked up to one of his favorite engineers. There was an Apple II on the desk. He picked it up, ripped it off the desk, and threw it down the stairs. He goes, "You're now on the Mac team." That's a true story. So, interesting.
That's inspirational.
Yeah.
I have to try that.
I mean, it's kind of harsh, but it's interesting. Yeah.
We're changing the design.
Exactly. Anyways, so here we are at this model, and this is essentially what the gun's going to be,
Yes.
right?
This is what we're calling a pre-production model, meaning that not 100% of the parts are made by our production vendors or of the production material, but they are to spec.
Like,
to the spec.
like the slide stops, that pixelation that we were telling you about, those are DMLS printed right now.
But we are projecting the shipping second quarter, and we have a lot of shops, and of course, now it gets fun because we can talk about it. We haven't talked
Right.
about this for 3.5 years, and now we get to
Been
talk
excited.
about it.
Yeah. You get to share your child. I mean, this is
Yeah.
your baby, really. This is, you guys have made this thing. This is from blood, sweat, and tears and throwing your investment into it and all your time and effort. And here there is a real thing sitting here that you've done. That's got to be awesome.
Yeah.
It's got to be a great feeling.
Yeah, whenever we hear somebody say it, it's just like, yeah, that is really cool. You know, us sitting here and we're just like, oh my gosh,
We've had this
finally.
on the timeline for so long, and now we're going through it, and it's incredible. So
Things
getting
pick up
positive
at this
feedback-
point?
Oh, absolutely.
Things have taken off. You said that the buzz happened.
The buzz got really big, and as the SHOT Show got closer, it got really big. And then we get here, and Ian and I are a little cynical about this industry, and so we're like, oh man, this is going to be interesting when we go to shoot this thing.
Well,
that's really it.
I guess we have to go look at it.
We have to go look at the Hudson. I mean, that's honest. I'm being honest, okay? And then we went there, and there were two guns that really shined for us in this show, and this was one of them, okay? And so we go to shoot it, and we go to and pick it up, and we met you first, actually. Didn't realize you were part of the owner, but and we're like, wow, this is cool. And then we go fire, and I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. And so what I said, I think, and I'm paraphrasing myself, but I thought, like, there's nothing, not I can say nothing. There's elements of all sorts of different designs elegantly aggregated into one piece. That's what I said. That was my mindset on that.
And
So-
that's what good firearms have always been.
Yep.
You know, the core elements of every gun have been around since 1920.
And I
if
want
not earlier.
to make sure that's not misinterpreted. That doesn't mean that was a compliment, right?
No,
It's not unique. You don't need to be unique. What you need to do is execute the right things right.
If you watch Forgotten Weapons a lot, you'll see a lot of unique things. That's often not a good
We found some.
I'm endorsing that because it's fun.
We found some unique things at the show that aren't
Yeah.
going to be around in a couple of years, but I don't think that's the case for the Hudson.
I think
Thank
you
you.
wanted to put the brick on that, possibly.
That and any delays, anything. We're a small company. We're just going to put it out through social media. We're going to say, hey, there's a shipping delay.
I think it matters to be full disclosure, but that's your goal.
You know what? This stuff happens in manufacturing. You can't predict the problems that are going to arise.
I
Well,
mean,
we're creating company SOPs, so hiring processes and all that kind of stuff. Actually,
Oh, you are building a company. That's another
Yeah.
part of it.
Yeah.
This isn't just building a gun. This is building a company and getting
Yeah.
the right people and doing all of that stuff.
we hired our first person this past
end of April.
April.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the team has grown and then shrunk and then grown, and it's been very, very fast paced and a lot of weekends. And we've got an awesome team where they know if we're calling them on the weekend, it's because we're reviewing their documents on the weekend.
Sure.
And everybody.
True startup environment, complete chaos.
Oh,
Yeah, no, totally. I've been in a
Yeah.
number of those in the tech sector.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
people are beat.
Q2 is your goal. You said you don't have. What's your confidence level on that? High, low, medium?
It's high.
High level confidence, but again, never know. And your MSRP target
1147.
1147.
Yep.
And then what about magazine availability?
Magazine availability, it is a proprietary too, but it's
Mhm.
built off the old 5906, which was built off the old high power back when the Mark 22 Hush Puppy took it, put it in there, and then they adapted finally to create the double stack off the Smith & Wesson 39 and moved into the 5906. So it is a proven tube, but we had to move our
It did
cuts.
open up the bottom for the possibility of mag extensions and all
Yeah.
that.
Okay,
Like
smart.
modern M&P.
That's one of those things I was talking about where they're like, and then we'll eventually do this. And we've already planned for how we've already allowed for it. In the
Setting
design.
up the road for the future.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's the goal.
And so okay, that's your magazine. So you think that'll be a reasonably
Are you
magazine?
having someone like Metgar or some other OEM
We're having a
shop?
large OEM, and we have put the cost into the tooling to make our own.
And then the other one that's always a challenge, holsters.
Everybody, we've already got the vector files over to G Code and Blade Tech, and that's just because they asked for them first. But everybody at this show here, we've got a lineup of people.
Q2 shipping helps.
This-
We're sending the inert guns to those guys after this.
Awesome.
Get it set
This
up.
gun absolutely lends itself to concealed carry,
Yeah.
service, or competition. So you're going to want to see holsters for all those purposes.
So it looks in the pictures, and people are really worried about it. Because this is so tall and this is beefy up front, it looks like a very big gun. But most of the guys have not even commented on the fact for concealed carry, it has a different profile than a traditional gun. So the printing will actually be offset by that. It looks more like a phone in your pocket than it does.
I could see that.
But I know most of the weapon light guys already appreciate that fact. Whenever they're appendix carrying, if they have a streamlined light, it just shows up as a very blocky thing.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay.
And as I mentioned earlier, that sveltness and that thinness, that's that 1911 profile, does lend itself to an excellent concealed carry pistol.
Yeah. What you said at the very beginning, and this was probably intentional, but maybe not, was the idea, having shot this now, of it's for people who like shooting 1911s, but without really thinking about why, carry a Glock or an M&P or something instead.
They like the 1911, but realize, you know what, this isn't the final answer for this problem, right?
Right.
There's never is a final answer, but this could be better.
Everybody who has ever carried a 1911 in the waistband, even if they don't want to admit it, has pulled it out at the end of the day and found that they have disengaged through movement their safety.
Absolute fact.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Fact. No doubt about it. So at this point, that's the history of the beginnings of the gun. So what I was thinking, and your company, and a little bit about you guys, which I think is awesome. This idea of an entrepreneurial couple doing this on their own accord kind of blows me away, and that's why I wanted to talk to you about this.
Most of the time, it's 60 below and we're stuck in the house for 3 months means divorce, not here's a cool new gun.
So I don't know what you're thinking, and so what I was thinking here is this is the origin story. We could pause here and then do part 2, which would be maybe the mechanicals of the gun. You guys are awesome. This is great. I want to thank you for taking the time not only for 1 but 2 videos with us today.
Thank you.
This is awesome to see this entrepreneurial couple coming together, making a new gun company and making a gun that's really cool.
And here at SHOT Show, you have a limited amount of time and you're just swamped by people. And really, thank you for taking a substantial amount of your day to do this with us and let us bring
You
it
spent
to
hours with
the
us, so
viewers.
we can't thank you enough for that and really appreciate it.
Well, to be not, a little bit selfish, we did get to sit down for these hours, so thank you for the
Thank you guys so
opportunity.
much.
Our legs are killing us.
And we're hoping that this is the kind of interesting, in-depth stuff you want to see out of InRange, because this is an opportunity for this that we found, and we wanted to grab onto that, to be honest with you. And so we thank you for that. And in that regard, I'm going to go ahead and tout ourselves a little bit. If you like this kind of content, please consider supporting us on Patreon. It is legitimately the reason we're at SHOT Show and able to do stuff like this with these two. If you can't, we understand. Please just share the video, promote the gun, subscribe to YouTube and Full Theory and Facebook, and watch the next one. Thank
Thanks
you
a lot,
very
guys.
much.